this hour. Israeli media reports that body parts handed over by the Red Cross do not belong to any of the missing hostages after forensic examinations were completed. The transfer had followed Israel's return of 30 Palestinian bodies to Gaza, a move seen as part of efforts to sustain the fragile ceasefire despite recent deadly clashes. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney confirmed that he has apologized to President Donald Trump over an anti-tariff ad that has sparked a diplomatic row. Trump has responded by slapping an extra 10% tariff on Canadian goods and freezing trade talks, which Carney says will resume when Washington is ready. Doctors Without Borders have said that thousands of civilians are feared trapped and in imminent danger in the Sudanese city of El Fasher after its fall to paramilitaries. A 38-year-old woman has been arrested in the Louvre heist case along with other 4 people. The woman appeared before a magistrate who will decide whether she should be detained in the case. Reports suggest that 7 arrests have been made so far. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has accused China of destabilizing actions in the South China Sea, and he has vowed to help Southeast Asian allies while speaking in Kuala Lumpur. Hegseth has further proposed a shared maritime domain awareness system with Australia, Japan, and the Philippines. African Union Commission issues statement on the Tanzania unrest. The chairperson has stated that it deeply regrets the loss of human life during the post-electoral protests. He has also extended his sincere condolences to the families of the victims. China's Shenzhou 21 crewed spaceship has successfully docked with the space station combination. The 3 astronauts on Shenzhou 21 are planned to enter the Tianhe core module of the space station now. France's National Assembly has rejected a left-wing proposal to impose a wealth tax on the ultra-rich, backing instead a government plan to tax the who are holding the company assets. Now we start with Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine's foreign minister has stated that Russia has used a cruise missile in combat that was at the center of 2019 arms control dispute with the United States. The ground-launched 9M729 missile, capable of carrying conventional or nuclear warheads. This has reportedly been fired at Ukraine at least 23 times since August. The missile's development prompted U.S. President Donald Trump to withdraw from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, which has banned missiles with ranges between 500 and 5,500 kilometers. Analysts say that the missile gives Russia new long-range attack options, complicates air defenses, and raises concerns for European security. Kyiv is calling for maximum international pressure on Moscow and support with long-range missiles to bolster Ukraine's defenses. Now for this discussion, we welcome Martin Tsai. He's a foreign affairs expert, joins us live from Quito. Thank you very much, Martin, for joining us again. Martin, how does this Russia's use of the particular 9M729 missile, how is this affecting the credibility and future of international arms control agreements? And do you think this has already started a new arms race between Russia and U.S.?
It's was meant to control the way that we're sticking up in order to major casualties.
Sorry, Martin, we cannot hear you clearly. There is a network issue with our guest over here. While we continue on this topic, Ukraine's foreign minister has stated that Russia has launched used a cruise missile in combat that was at the center of a 2019 arms control dispute between the United States and Russia. The ground-launched 9M729 missile capable of carrying conventional or nuclear warheads. This has reportedly been fired at Ukraine at least 23 times since August of this year. The missile's development prompted U.S. President Donald Trump to withdraw from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, which has banned missiles with ranges between 500 and 5,500 kilometers. Now we welcome back our guest, Martin Sai-Rides, for joining us. Thank you, Martin, for joining us again. Hopefully, would you like to answer my same question from the beginning? Thank you.
So I think this really real break between Trump and basically.
Unfortunately, we are losing connection with our guest, Martin Sai-Rides. But thank you very much, Martin, for joining us as a foreign affairs expert and sharing that insight. Now we move on to Europe. In France, a 38-year-old woman has been charged in connection with the high-profile jewel heist at the Louvre Museum. The suspect, who reportedly lives in the northern Paris suburb of La Courneuve, was arrested earlier this week along with 4 others. Legal charges were filed against her with complicity in organized theft and criminal conspiracy. Her court appearance comes as one of the other suspects detained in the same case was released earlier, with no legal charges put against him. According to French authorities, 2 men who were arrested earlier in the investigation have already been charged after they partially admitted involvement. They are suspected of entering the gallery while 2 others stood guard outside. Now, a total of 7 people have been detained so far over this heist, which saw thieves raid the Louvre in broad daylight last month. The theft operation, which lasted just 7 minutes, saw jewelry worth about $102 million stolen. Additionally, several of the recently arrested suspects have also been brought before magistrates at the Paris court today. The police investigation is still continuing, and for now, the stolen jewels also remain missing. Now, for this discussion, we welcome Alison Mutler. She's a former AP bureau chief in Romania, joins us live from Bucharest. Thank you very much, Alison, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, talking about this heist again with you, how is this profile influencing the European law or French law enforcement policies? Did it change anything after this heist?
Obviously, the heist was something absolutely shocking. It's the equivalent of France's crown jewels were stolen. Okay, France no longer has a monarchy. And it was a shocking story, not just for France, but for the whole world because of how famous the Louvre is. I think it's the most visited museum. So there's a lot of pressure on French law enforcement to apprehend the people that stole these jewels, and some of them they dropped. There was evidence, obviously, there was DNA left on the motorbikes. There may have been DNA left in the museum. And they have tried to act quickly. Some of the lawyers said they acted too quickly, that they used dragnet and they just started arresting people without, solid proof. But there is a lot of pressure on French law enforcement to get the perpetrators, but not just the perpetrators, the people that carried it out, but the people behind the heist, the people who organized it, the people who ordered the heist. And then obviously the important thing is to recover the jewels. That has not happened so far, but obviously French law enforcement is putting a lot of pressure on the people they have arrested and apprehended to discover who the people who ordered this heist were and where the jewels have been taken. I did note that the courts did, which is quite unusual in our democratic society. The prosecutors have asked for the court sessions to be a closed-door event. They don't want the press in there. They don't want the details from the legal proceedings being leaked to the media, being leaked to the world, because that could actually help the people who are behind this heist. So I don't know how much it's changed the French law enforcement, but obviously the world, the eyes of the world are on France, are on its law enforcement agencies to see whether they will apprehend, they will catch these thieves and the people that ordered it, because obviously a very complex, it was obviously a very complex operation. And then obviously the most important thing is to recover the stolen loot, the stolen treasure, which is worth, I think, almost 90 million euros. But it's not just the money it's worth, it's it's the patrimony, it's the cultural worth, it's worth to France. But it's also a huge embarrassment that a heist could be carried off in such a daring way in under 7 minutes. So there is a lot of pressure on French law enforcement to get this right, but actually get it right, not just arrest people left, right and centre who they then later have to release. And then obviously the recovery of the jewels is the most important aspect of this investigation.
Yes, indeed. And since a lot of things are still undercover about this, do you think that there are still many people who were involved in this? And is there any reports of where these jewels might be now?
Well, these kind of robberies are generally coordinated, ordered by the brains, and then they're carried out by these thieves. I imagine these are thieves that are probably informally known that they can be hired, and they do have previous criminal records. Now, because of the famousness of the pieces stolen, I understand that they will not be sold as they are, necklaces, diadems, etc., but they will be dismantled and then probably sold on the black market or to collectors, but very much undercover. Everything is very much undercover. But because how famous these pieces are, they can't be actually brought into the open to the public, so that the jewels, if they are not recovered, will be dismantled. And there must be a market for this. It's not a market, it's an undercover market, it's a black market. It won't be obviously well-known collectors or rich people who will be buying these pieces, but people will be buying these, undercover people.
Right. Oh, with that, I would like to thank Alison Mutler for sharing that insight on this topic. Always nice hearing from you. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next news as well. Now, White House official has confirmed that the United States will not send top officials to the COP30 climate summit in Brazil later this month. Instead, President Donald Trump is focusing on promoting fossil fuel development and energy partnership through trade and diplomatic deals. The announcement follows Trump's controversial speech at the United Nations General Assembly in September, where he dismissed climate change as the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, and criticized the international climate predictions as costly and misleading. Trump has consistently opposed policies supporting green energy, including wind and solar power, framing them as a part of a green scam. Critics warn that this stance undermines global efforts to addressing rising temperatures and environmental crisis. Now we welcome back Alison Mutler. She's a former AP Bureau Chief in Romania, joins us live from Bucharest. Thank you very much, Alison, for staying with us. Alison, now looking at this, how might US's absence of top officials at COP30 affect the outcomes of this summit, and does it also affect its credibility and influence in international climate negotiations?
Well, on the surface, you'd say perhaps this is very bad that the US is staying away, but I've also read that it's actually quite a good idea, because then the US, which has a lot of clout, power, authority, however you like to describe it, they will not be able to derail the process. The discussions will take place without the world's biggest power, and they will not be able to come with their anti climate change message. So it actually might make it a little bit easier. This conference already has run into difficulties because it's being organized within the Amazon rainforest, and it's actually quite hard to access there. And the hotels are very expensive. So there are already logistical problems. But with the US not being there, or that it will be represented, but not at a high level, because there are under sort of national, a state level, mayors, et cetera, but without sort of someone from the White House being there or a top envoy being there, it actually might make it a little bit easier for the other countries to come to some agreement. But the whole idea of the climate change or the climate crisis is changing. I saw this week that Bill Gates himself said that he had made a mistake, and that although climate change is real, it's not going to wipe out the human race, as it were. It will affect humans, but it won't be as catastrophic as he had initially thought. And of course, Donald Trump seized on this and said, look, the great hoax, now we have come to the right conclusion. Bill Gates has admitted he was wrong. So he seized on that because Bill Gates previously was at odds with Donald Trump. But Donald Trump, of course, does rely on these fossil fuels, that means coal and oil, etc. They actually helped him get into office. So he has a vested interest in those fossil fuels as well. So even if it is obvious there is climate change happening on the planet, we can see that by the number of floods, the temperature rise, etc. There are now significant voices saying that it may not be as catastrophic as originally predicted.
Right, and I really like how you say Bill Gates is was the ultimate Donald Trump there. Alison, do you think all these changes or all these sparks coming in from President Trump and also Bill Gates, do you think this will undermine the actual implications that environmental has, climate change has on current policies and also prioritizing fossil fuel development over green energy? Do you think it could become a trend again?
I think it's definitely with the absence of the United States and also the statements from Bill Gates, I think it is watering it down a bit. I think climate change is obvious to anyone who lives on this planet, or people, not just climatologists, but ordinary people, because of the climate events we've seen in recent years. But obviously with Donald Trump staying away with what Bill Gates said, there will perhaps be less international commitment. I understand that Keir Starmer is going there from the UK. Other leaders will go there. Some may stay away because of the logistical difficulties. And definitely, I think that there is more of an alternative voice now. So maybe we will lead to a world where there will be alternative renewable energy like wind and nuclear, etc. But there will be fossil. I don't think fossil fuels will go away because people need, what energy sources they can get. So maybe the pressure on the climate change, it will be somewhat dissipated with Donald Trump's position, I think.
Right, and going back to your first answer, you mentioned that some people are saying that it could be a good thing instead that U.S. is not sending their higher officials to this COP30. But do you think if U.S. Being one of the major countries that is sending out carbon dioxide into the air and affecting climate, pulls out of this, or it doesn't sign any agreements on this, do you think does it affect the credibility moving forward in international climate change or negotiations, which could be agreed on this COP30, but without U.S. Being a major part in this climate change? Will it change anything moving forward?
Yes, without the presence of the US there, which is, as you say, produces most of the carbon, it will affect the strength and the authority of this movement. There's no doubt about it. But I'm afraid that was predictable, because we know what Donald Trump's position on climate change is from day one. Even on his first term, he called it a hoax. So I think it will affect it, but it wasn't entirely unpredictable. And obviously, he's, as I said, very much helped by somebody who's previously a champion of fighting climate change, has changed his attitude. He's not said it doesn't exist, but he's just saying it's not as catastrophic as we thought it would be. We don't know what's behind the change of his decision, whether it's scientific research or whether it's a political reason. But there definitely is a very strong voice against action for climate change. And, the US not being there does undermine what will be decided at this meeting, at the summit. I think it's this week.
Yes, I think it starts from next week or next week, Monday, right? Mm-hmm. And Alison, building on that, who do you think would be taking lead instead of US in this summit then?
Well, it's not been confirmed exactly who's going. I've been reading reports. I do know that Keir Starmer is going, so maybe Britain will assume a leading role. I don't know what France is. France has a lot of nuclear power. They also might play a role. There might be, because there is no big country like the US, there may be a coalition of 2 or 3 or 4 countries that get together to form a stronger association. That could also happen, because there isn't, that the US is a major power, and we don't have at the moment a major power attending. So we might have a coalition of other countries together who will try and form a sort of leadership role. I think that's my prediction.
And do you think that lastly, Alison, do you think that part of U.S. not sending its delegation to this official or upper delegation to this COP summit could be the strained or rocky relationship that we saw earlier with Lula and Bolsonaro and Trump? Do you think could that be part of reason as well?
Yeah, when we talk about climate change, we are obviously, there is the physical realities that the climate is changing, the planet is heating up. But behind that, there's always big economic reasons, because, you have the coal industry, you have the oil industry, you have the gas industry, which are worth billions and billions and trillions. But they're also always political, because the whole, if you like, problem with climate change is that it became very early on a political issue rather than an economic or a social issue. It was either you believe in it or you call it a hoax. And in a way, that's some people would say that's rather a shame, because it actually should be a scientific issue, but it isn't. It's an economic and a political issue. And so you have leaders like Donald Trump say that it's a hoax because for economic reasons and political reasons, and then you have leaders like Keir Starmer who say it's important to take measures to stop the planet warming up and to not run out of energy supplies. So politics always play a role in these matters, as do economics. And it's not just a geological, human, social issue.
With that, I would like to thank Alison Mutler for joining us and sharing that insight. Always great learning from you. Thank you very much for joining us. Now we stay in the region. Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan has met with senior members of Hamas's political bureau in Istanbul today. The meeting included Hamas official Khalil al-Hayya, who reportedly survived an Israeli raid in Qatar last month. Moreover, al-Hayya has also served as the group's chief negotiator in indirect talks with Israel over U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to end the Gaza war. The discussions in Istanbul has focused on the ceasefire in Gaza and the need for humanitarian aid access. According to the Turkish Foreign Ministry, the talks have taken place ahead of Monday's meeting, which will include guarantor countries from the Trump's Gaza peace plan, such as Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia. This diplomatic engagement between Turkey and Hamas comes amid reports from Israeli media that the partial remains of 3 deceased individuals handed over to Israel by Hamas overnight were not those of any hostages that were held in Gaza. Meanwhile, Israel says that the bodies of 11 hostages, including 2 foreign nationals, still remain in Gaza. Hamas has so far released 20 living hostages and returned the deceased remains of 17 others since the Gaza truce was in effect on October 10th. Now we move on to Asia. Taiwan's opposition leader Cheng Li-wun has officially taken over as the new opposition leader. The former lawmaker has assumed office at the time when tensions with Beijing are at all-time high. Her party has always advocated for a closer relationship with China, even after the election. Chinese President Xi Jinping congratulated her as she officially assumes the role of chairperson. She has issued several statements calling out the unbearable expectations of the United States for Taiwan to increase its military budget. She further stated that Taiwan is being used as an ATM. Let's in fact listen into what the Taiwanese opposition leader has said.
美国现在的期待是远远超过我们可以合理负担的范围。台湾虽然是一个经济实力很强的地方，但我们也没有办法负担起这么高的军费预算。是提款机，我们真的没有这么多钱，我们需要合理的去思考我们的国防预算。那如何拆解掉这个隐性？应该是透过政治的努力，化解掉两岸的军事冲突。投资在军备上面是绝对不可能带来和平的。
At least now we move on to our next news, to Africa. At least 13 people were killed in a landslide in Kenya's Rift Valley early Saturday morning today, following heavy overnight rains, local police has confirmed. According to Elgeyo Marakwet Country Police Commander Peter Mulinge, 19 survivors have been rescued while several others still remain missing. Interior Minister Murkomen has stated that military and police helicopters have been deployed to aid in ongoing search and rescue operations. Authorities fear the death toll may rise as rescue teams continue to shift through the debris. Kenya has experienced an increasing landslides and flash floods in recent years, which experts link to the effects of climate change and intensifying rainfall patterns. In one of the country's worst disasters last year, 61 people were killed in mudslides and floods in central Kenya. Now we move on to our next news. 2 people were killed and at least 10 others injured after a shooting in the Greek island of Crete. Authorities say a man and a woman were shot dead when a gunman opened fire in the village of Warizia. Police have not released details about this suspect, but officials believe the attack may be linked to a long-running family vendetta. The shooting comes just hours after an explosion at a construction site where police say a bomb had been planted. Crete has a long history of violent feuds between families over revenge and honor disputes. Greece's top police officials, including the national police chief and the head of the organized crime unit, are on their way to the island to oversee this investigation.